Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So what's kind of crazy about Tom's schedule right now is he literally is flying out tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. So that's why I think he deserved a round of applause, first of all. And dedication. The really exciting thing about Tom is he has devoted over 20 years of experience of leading software and technology companies. And since 2009, he started with Calabrio, and he has really turned the company around and has done some absolutely amazing things. There is a list of awards that his company has received. Normally people say year over year, month over month. We're looking at day over day. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of pinpoint, as there's been awards for the best 150th company in Minneapolis, then it went down to the top 100th company, fastest growing technology companies. There's just so many awards. So I would like to have you showcase a couple awards that you think are pretty exciting.
Okay. Well, that's and tribute to Rebecca for all the work she does. And she's full-time putting in award applications, it appears. We'll have to talk about what else she does. No, the good stuff that we're up to is I point to just a couple. There's a million awards that we all can go get, you know that, and but the ones that matter are being recognized for when it's recognizing for technology. The things we're building and people that are independent voices, so call it Forrester, Frost & Sullivan, Gartner. You look at those that recognize our people, the Star Tribune, Best Places to Work, those things that recognize the people that put that together. And so those are the things I really point to, and kind of some of the pivot points in the company really are 2.5 years ago being named a leader in the Magic Quadrant by Gartner, which recognizes there's 4 quadrants you can be in, and the upper right is where you strive to be. And there's many Fortune 500 CEOs, CIOs won't buy your technology unless it's sitting there. And so we saw it was an amazing influx of opportunities. I just confirmed, and where I'm flying to, I'm on my way to see Maersk in Copenhagen tomorrow, and for an annual strategy meeting, and they said, had it not been for us being in that quadrant, we wouldn't have been the vendor of choice, and that's a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract. So it's important to have those kinds of accolades, and just to make sure that, and then on the other side is the employees, making sure that we're really proud of being a company that people want to work at, and creating a culture that can build product like that.
Well, when you talk about culture, culture can be so exciting, but it can also be challenging. Mm-hmm. And you have offices in Brazil and in London and Singapore. Where else are there locations that...
Right here in Minneapolis.
Okay. Well, things do change, so I didn't want to close anything out.
I appreciate that.
So the culture. Talk a little bit about the culture, leading this company right now. What's a positive thing about the culture in those different areas?
We have a few employees here. You could ask them what they see, but from my seat, it's really a bunch of people that are passionate about what they do. They come in and work really hard, and like I say, build great product, do great marketing, do everything that everybody does. It's top-notch people that work really hard at doing that. And so, and really culture starts many years ago, right? When we were 25 people, not when we were 300. And
right.
Making sure that everybody that's coming in understands that this is an expectation. Part of the expectation is what we're doing. How we do it, not just what we do. We measure, our HR systems it's a simple 9-box, right? What you do, how you do it, and how you do your work is just as important as what you do. So you could be the most brilliant technologist, and I say, pardon me, but are you an asshole or not? And so you can't be, even if you're the best at what you could be, if you're an asshole doing it, I don't want you around. And so we have those conversations more so early on in setting that culture, but I personally have a lot of fun coming to work. Hopefully you guys do too, and continue to.
Yes. Well, when you talk about in bringing on employees and explaining to them the culture and the importance, and are you all in, are you this type of person? Those employees that are obviously surrounding you trust you, and they see a leadership in you. And I think a lot of times leadership roles do start to mold when you're younger. And so one of my first questions I wanted to ask you, going back to when Tom was maybe this big, or this big, who inspired you, or did you have a mentor? Let's go back to when you were a child. I mean, when did you realize that, I am a leader, I want to go down this path because...
I didn't know, to be honest with you, it was later in life that I realized this was what I wanted to do. I grew up in Minneapolis. My dad was a Minneapolis policeman. My mom stayed home. I knew kind of that work ethic, and my dad my mom and dad are both amazing. My dad passed when I was 19, and so I think some of those messages are a little more solidified. My mom still kicks my ass today. And so, an example was coming back. I was fortunate enough to be named one of the top CEOs in technology this summer, and coming back to the table, it was great to have my mom there, and she's, grabbed me and said, "Don't let it go to your head." And so she's still there doing that, but my dad was an amazing leader himself, and he was a Minneapolis beat cop on Hennepin for 18 years, and just going down to work with him, watching how he interacted with people was absolutely amazing to me. But I didn't realize, that was, you didn't look at it as that's what leadership is. I looked at it as that's how you treat people, and it didn't matter whether you were a business owner or whether you were a person struggling on the street. He had his funeral up in Blaine, and there was 3,000 people showed up, and the processional from Blaine to the Fort Snelling was through Minneapolis. They shut down 4th so we could come through, and there were people, and it was kind of a tribute to all the policemen around. I wish we had this much respect for the police today. I think a lot of us in this room do, but overall, the people that couldn't come down, whether it was the homeless or street type people, were all in the squad cars and came to Blaine. I don't know how they did any policing that day, but it was an amazing tribute to his life, and kind of living that, being able to live that, to be important at more than what you're doing, being, getting outside of yourself was a really big early lesson.
Wow, that's wonderful. It's great to hear a story like that about your father. With that said, it sounds as if he definitely was inspirational to you. As you were growing up in your 20s and 30s, was there anyone that just really inspired you to think differently?
I had the great fortune. I spent the first 8 years out of college at KPMG. Okay. So I worked with just an amazing group of both partners and then my clients. It was, I saw so many cool things, and I felt like I was really lucky. I kind of, every day I'd come to work, and I wasn't smart enough to stay away from, tripping into the opportunities. And so when here in Minneapolis, I worked for one of the many great partners, but one of them was that I worked for most of the year as I was a senior manager was Tim Flynn, who ended up being the CEO and global chair of KPMG, and he's an amazing leader. He's back, he's running the Super Bowl committee now. I worked for other great partners, but then I got the chance to move to San Francisco, and I got everybody's crap clients, and there were these little startups back in 1996-ish, and one of them was Tom Siebel, Siebel Systems, and that ended up doing absolutely nothing. NVIDIA with Jensen Huang, and he was probably the most influential to me. Jensen was, a 35-year-old entrepreneur starting up NVIDIA, and watching what he did to combat the markets, and because it was not easy there. When I showed up, it was a $5 million company losing $25 million a year, and so watching what they've become today as a multi-billion-dollar hardware company is just absolutely amazing. And he's still the CEO 22 years later, and so he's just an amazing leader. And then just from how does it all get done and how does it all get pulled together? Weirdly enough, another one of my companies was a company called Fiberlane, who Vinod Khosla founded. And I got to know Vinod very well and do some personal work for him. So seeing just the different components of the Valley and how that worked, and it was just kind of falling ass backwards into it, quite frankly. And just knowing and going back to my dad's, just work hard and good things have come. So those set of experiences set me up to understand kind of how tech comes together and allowed me to kind of launch into the software world and drive hard.
So when you were in San Francisco, what brought you back here to Minneapolis?
Great schools, great. My youngest my oldest was going to kindergarten, so wanted to raise him here. He's a senior at the University of Minnesota now. Awesome. And then it just kind of sticks with you, right? It's a great place to raise kids. It's a wonderful community. Great education, great everything.
So what would you, if you were mentoring a group of 20-year-olds, what advice would you give them today in technology?
Probably just learn everything you can, right? Just jump in, dive in. You cannot make mistakes in technology, right? We all know this. Unless you're on hardware, and that's a whole different story. No, but in the software world and even in the hardware world today, because it's so software driven, just try. That's how I actually learned software. I'm literally a CPA, but I early on wanted to do coding and monkey around with networking, and everything I did was self-taught. A couple of classes here and there, but everything I did was self-taught, and you go and figure it out, and there literally aren't mistakes. It's a lot like art. You look at my best UX developers, those people, they're all artists that finally decided they need to make money. And that is a lot. Math and art are very parallel. If you make a mistake, you erase the paper and start over. If you make a mistake in art, you paint the canvas blue and start over. So it's a lot the same.
Right. So constantly pivoting and making it work, figuring it out. So what was kind of interesting is your 2020 plan, talking about where the world is going and technology is changing and needing to know your customers and the technology that you were given in order to take a look at the analytics and really hone in on what the customer needs. And you had mentioned in regards to wearables, we are a walking computer, pretty much, always in touch with technology. But what was interesting was you were mentioning something I thought was kind of funny in regards to your washing machine and dryer. It's going to be making appointments for you. So it's constantly being able to be ahead of technology, so then your customers are looking for the latest and greatest. So I think that's hats off to you for having that vision, but not only having the vision ahead, but understanding the customer's voice matters the most. And so within your industry, the next question I have is, what is really the hot topic right now? What are people talking about in your industry? Where do you need to be in order to be beyond your 2020 plan?
Beyond the 2020 plan, today the hot thing is what's been hot all along. It's kind of morphing in, but customer engagement is absolutely huge, and being able to pivot on what your customer wants. But the part that I think we bring to it, and others are starting to finally figure it out, is to bring great customer experience. You have to bring great employee experience. It really starts, you're no better at customer experience than you are at taking care of your own employees. And so being able to mold all of that information and kind of look at it holistically, that never gets old. And so just like we've seen changes from, you know, modems to internet to, you know, as you look at the different modes to wireless, we're seeing the changes from distributed computing to cloud computing to the next thing. But the real, it's what you're uptaking from the world. The wearables, all of the information is absolutely incredible, the amount of information that we can get our hands on. And so what's going to be beyond 2020 is kind of knowing, being able to be 4 or 5 years ahead of what are the next 5 inputs that you're going to have, right? In 2014, I talked about 2020 being kind of the pivot point for where I thought Internet of Things would take off. Beyond that, what is it going to be? Where is the next data going to be? And how do you synthesize that data so you're not, you know, so you can put it in the right bucket, right? So it's in the right shard and you're driving the right behaviors, because information just in a box is just information.
Right.
And so being able to take all these, and that's the part that's really changing for us today and will continue to change and become even more important is the unstructured data, right? It's and at the center of that is voice, and being able to just say something and let it happen, not have to have it go through a calculation and in a database. It's just the voice actually being heard in a way that AI can take care of it. And so AI is just going to become more and more important to us.
Yeah. Would anyone have a question they'd like to ask? Tom? Yes.
Tom, I'm not familiar with when you actually started with Calabrio, how far we were, but could you tell us a little bit about how it worked out?
Absolutely. So Calabrio was the software division of a company called Spanlink here in town. That was started in 1992-ish, 1992 to 1995. And in about 1999, there was some bits that were thrown around to help that they had built for some of their clients. They're a Cisco advanced technology partner, so a lot of services that go out. And Cisco at one point said, "Will you record these calls for us?" And so they figured out a way. That was about 1999, 2000. That morphed to about 2005. 2005, 2006, there was a movement to make workforce management part of that suite of products. They went to Montreal, Canada, and bought a company called Calabrio. And that company got folded into Spanlink, and in about late 2007, the board, and wisely so, those of you that have been in services companies or software companies know that at a small scale they can't exist together. You'll rob the services company to build software and you'll not make money, or you'll rob the software company to make money and nothing will happen. And so they wisely split them apart and funded it. Late 2007, and I actually joined in late 2007, not 2009, as the COO and became the CEO in 2009. And so that's the origin of Calabrio.
So how much has it grown since then, employee-wise?
We were about 40 people coming out. We're over 300 today.
And what is the impact of that?
What's the impact of that?
What have you learned?
More people, more problems? No, no. The impact is fantastic, right? We've grown revenue 20-fold. We've been profitable almost every year of existence. So we've been very fortunate to, from the time we split and took a $9 million investment, we sold this summer for a decent amount and kind of reset the clock here. But it's been a good ride. We've had good growth and we'll continue that. Hopefully, our organic plan is to be 400 plus people by this time next year. and probably another 50% bigger.
So in terms of the types of values you're building, what have you found? I mean, I think every company may be a little bit personal, but what are values you found that have been helpful for your company of creating the type of employee engagement you want and also attracting the type of people you want? Because in today's workforce, obviously, there's a lot of competition for talented people, so you've got to stand out.
Yeah, I think the main things, and guys, if you want to jump in, please do. But the things that I hold dear are kind of that openness, the collaboration. Our building is a little bit lower ceilings than this, but wide open and very easy to work in, and there's a certain energy to it. So it's those people that come in and want to work hard and solve problems, and want to make mistakes and drive harder and faster today than yesterday. Those are the things that I hold dear. Anybody else? Nick?
What I love is that I can walk into your office all the time. It's similar to that. It's pretty open environment. I can sit there and talk to you like we're talking right now, and that's what I love about the conference. Everybody's open, everybody's accessible, everybody is willing to be there.
Excellent. Nick?
I kind of joke, it's in the name. We're always like collaborating, and I think open and honesty and being willing to pursue what you don't know and being willing to fail. The best realizations are made with mistakes. So being able to feel empowered to do that and having the sense of we're all in this together is really, it makes you want to come back every day. And so that's a huge piece of the culture for us.
And this is a guy that showed up after I did his tech interview.
Yeah.
So do those are great answers, but how do you as a person, just maybe as part of the hiring decision, decide, do these people actually embody that, or are they just full of crap telling you that that's what they're all about because that's what they think you want to hear?
That's the real heart of it. That for me, it's I actually hired the first 200 people. The last interview was with me, and for me, it was one. We exchanged niceties, and the last question was really. They had been there twice or three times to get into my office. They had done, passed the tech interviews, done all that, and it was as simple as, why did you come back? And you'd be shocked by the time you've loosened somebody up what they'll tell you, right? And so when you said, I see a place that I could grow, you didn't have to say, I want to be here forever, I'm going to be your best employee. You had to say, I want to be here to grow. I get the vibe that you're throwing off. I get, there was several words that fit the bill, but others would look and go, there's cool tech, and I think I'm going to be able to get my next job through this. And that was okay if you were grooving on who you met and what you were doing, but if it was just purely it was a stepping stone, it probably wasn't going to be a fit. Or if, hey, I like doing things on my own, I'm independent. If when you look at this looks like our cube setup, you're going to have a hard time with your headphones on and trying to block out the noise, right? And the thing that I really like is that past that 200 where I'm not as involved anymore, the VPs and the managers got what I was doing, and the last interviewer took that up, knowing that I wasn't there to help them, because I hate turnover. And voluntary turnover is horrible if we aren't taking good care of them. Involuntary turnover to me is even worse. I hate firing people because that means that it was probably a hiring mistake, not their issue as much as ours. And so my managers know that they need to set the bar high and ask and drive the right questions. Is that better? All right, great. We'll get there, come on.
Thank you.
Yes, Larry?
What is your most standout piece of advice?
that I received. Oh my gosh, the best ever was keep your mouth shut and your ears open, you might learn something today. How's that? And that I learned secondhand through one of my good friends in college, where it was 6 of us that started together at KPMG, and we all, our very first day of work, met at, I think it was Keys for breakfast in 1990. This is 1992, and Paul Grillo walks in. He goes, "You'd never guess what happened." My dad sat me down, and out of us, we were all farmers and cops kids, right? It was, and his dad was an actual professional, so his dad gave him that advice, and I thought that was fantastic.
Really good advice. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yes.
What's the biggest challenge you're dealing with now at Calabrio, and how are you meeting it head on?
It's probably prioritizing all the opportunities that we have, right? As we're now faced, those of you who don't know, I sold the business to KKR this summer, and along with that came another chunk of capital where we're out buying stuff. And so prioritizing, what are we going to buy, how are we going to buy it, and most importantly, how are we going to bring those people into the fold. If we do what we want to do, by this time next year I'll be sitting here saying we're 1,400 employees and $200 million. And so it's a whole, that's a lot to take on, but we have to choose wisely in getting there, and then making sure that we continue to grow my team, and my team grows. And they're all fantastic, and we all all ready for this next run, but you've got to prioritize properly, otherwise you can just get buried in all of it.
So with all the growth that you are responsible to help support and continue to grow, and the new hires that are going to be coming on, obviously you will probably be splitting at the seams in your office down here. Mm-hmm. Do you see yourself going into other cities?
So some of the acquisitions we'll have opportunities to expand through that, but our headquarters is I committed. One of the things with KKR is I made it very clear I'm not moving, the company's not moving, and so Minneapolis is our headquarters. We are expanding in our office here next summer, for those of you guys that don't know, and then we will be over the next in 2018, depending on what happens. I have a secondary plan where we will stay nearby, but we won't be in that building.
Okay, excellent.
In this low unemployment environment, how are you bringing in more people? And even our neighboring states are also, the environment's very low unemployment. What's the strategy?
To bring in more people?
Yeah,
just to bring in the best and brightest, because the last hire is the one that recruits the next. And so guys like Nick, Brady, those guys are all responsible for my next hires, and they're doing an amazing job, right? If I continue to keep the bar high, there's an opportunity in finding ways to grow inside the company, and then making sure that my son, who's a senior computer science engineer, I get all his friends to work for us. The indentured servitude thing, but it ends up economics does actually take over at some point or another, and it's been, and so we've seen some changes over the last few years particularly, and then we're also doing really some kind of interesting things to it's not all about paying benefits for millennials today, but they said that 20 years ago, and I always said they were full of shit, right? It's got to be in the range, and then it's the other things to get them to actually choose you. So we're doing some pretty cool and unique things outside of. We'll be announcing. Those of you guys here tonight, be quiet. No, we're announcing first of the year. We're going to be doing some student loan repayments, where we'll be people that come in, or even if you're a current employee and have a student loan, we'll be accelerating your ability to pay that off sooner. We'll be doing some more economic retirement type stuff. We'll be doing, I'm adding 3 or 5 days off next year to reflect. I've always just on the day of the Friday before Memorial Day, I always just kind of said, go take a half day off, whatever. We're just making them holidays now and making it Calabrio specific. So we're trying to do things that would reflect how we live, in particular Minnesota, right? We hold dear because it's so short, Memorial Day, Labor Day. And so why not make those really Minnesota-esque holidays?
What's your work-life balance secret?
Mine?
Yeah, you got
Give
kids.
it up.
You have kids, and you have you're traveling all the time, and just wondering if you.
You know, it comes from something I talked about many years ago. It's work-life is all what you kind of make it, and it's not measured in days and weeks. It's measured in years and lifetimes. And so, and maybe that's just a cop-out for I work too much, but you'd find the moments and you embrace them and drive hard and play hard, and so that's my personal way. And the other thing for me, I'm strange in that I absolutely about 10 years ago I actually looked in the mirror and said my avocation actually meets my vocation. If I weren't doing this, I'd be helping friends do it, and I'd be doing it for free. Don't tell my bosses. But the fact is that it is work-life balance because it's so easy. When you skip into work every day and it's all pretty fun, it makes it easy. So that's really prioritizing every single day what's important. Guys?
I work for Calabrio and I just successfully got a referral, so it's very true about bringing in some of the best and smartest people that if you like it, you obviously want to bring those people with you sometimes. So,
particularly because you get paid.
Yeah.
And don't worry, at their New Start breakfast, I remind them that they should have split it with you, so that's still coming.
I'll buy the drink. I think I've heard this story once, but I think for this group of entrepreneurs here, they might be interested. When you took over as CEO, we had one type of product,
Yep.
and our largest partner decided to make their version of that product, and we had to do a complete pivot to a whole new type of product very quickly. Maybe you could cover, that would seem to be a pretty big hurdle in Calabrio's history.
Well, it was, thanks for reminding me. So in 2009, shortly after I became CEO, got a call from a friend of mine at Cisco who, at that time we were doing computer telephony interface was our biggest software product. So we had the two that I talked about that I kind of try to keep on script to that, but we had another product and it was $15 million a year of product, and then the other products were $1 million a year. And so actually they were $2 million or something like that. And anyway, he called up and said, we're no longer going to buy that from you. Good luck. And so we went from being a $17 million company to a $2 million company overnight. So we sat down and pivoted to where the revenue was going to come from and where our future was going to come from, and really looked in the mirror and said, are we going to be, can we compete in that industry? We were going up against, at that time, 2 $700 million companies and 45 also-rans. And so we had to decide whether, as a company, we wanted to take on that challenge or kind of just kind of fold up, crawl in a corner and fold up. So we hit the challenge head on and found a way to get to this place.
Are you glad that took place?
Yeah, I was super glad.
You would not be where you are today.
Yeah, 2016,
if that didn't happen.
super glad. In 2009, I was, those of you guys old enough, I went home the night that happened, and somebody asked how my day was, and my response was, I think Alan Funt was going to jump out of my closet today. It was totally a candid camera moment, because it was awful. But, the thing you probably don't know is I kept it from the employees for a year. I was able to pivot and everybody thought I was schizophrenic because of the way I was going after the one, but I didn't think it was necessary to get everybody all up in arms, and we could just go and pivot and win. So.
Well, I think that's what's great about a strong leader is you don't necessarily, of course you want your employees or you want your team around you, but sometimes there isn't a reason to actually share certain information. And also the whole entrepreneur where you don't give up and you just keep going. And at that moment, you may not necessarily understand why is this happening, but when you look back, you go, I am so glad that took place because I would not be who I am today or have the opportunities that I have. So I think, hats off to you. Again, many awards, but I think what is the most important that I continue to hear and have read is the respect that your team, your employees, the people around you, they really enjoy working for you because they really believe in what your vision is. So hats off to you for that one. Not a lot of leaders do have that, so I think that is fantastic. But with that said, I wanted to make sure that if anybody had any additional questions, they had an opportunity to ask Tom as we are getting close to our end of our event. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yes?
Congratulations on your success. With the gift of hindsight, is there anything that you would do differently with that?
There's probably a million things, but that's what I think about that all the time, and thank you for the kindest thing you can call me as an entrepreneur. It was kind of as a hired gun to come in, and I looked at that pivot as the time I went from being a hired gun to an entrepreneur because I had no other choice.
Well, it's the behavior that makes an entrepreneur.
And so it was, and that's what I always wanted to be. So it was kind of, it all worked out. But and it really I wanted to be because a lot like a person that I didn't mention was I worked for Greg Frankenfield, the founder of Magenic, for 7 years, and just a great guy, great leader. But one of his lines is why I quit, because I don't work and play well with others. So it worked out that I got to follow in his footsteps. But would I do anything different? Probably a million things, but that's what I see in my friends that are entrepreneurs, those that work hard, is that we kind of forget about them almost immediately. So I could, if we sat down and we're really honest about it, I pulled out all my books and all my notes, I'd say, yeah, here could have hired somebody, that person instead of that person. I could have done this with the product sooner or that. But truth be told, I don't think about it a whole lot.
So no regrets?
No regrets.
Laura, you had another question?
Yeah, growth too fast can be a problem. Growth too slow can be a problem. So what's your governor?
The governor has always been kind of the employees and surrounding myself with great people. I had a great board through this whole thing, and I continue. My new board is awesome. And being really open and honest to those around you. Not kind of, if you are really open about all the things that you're thinking, and I'm seeing this problem in this market and this challenge here and this here, you start to, the governor ends up being a collective. You say, are we all signing up, right? When the first day you walk into a budget meeting and you look at your head of sales and say, we're going to do 70% growth next year, which we've done for 2 years. The first time you do that, everybody chokes. But then you say, but what about, we spent $70 million on the product in the last 3 years. Don't you think it's ready? We were a very product-first company, and then at some point you have to go out and sell it. We had done 50 million of that, and I had 3 sales guys, and so we were pretty successful with those 3 and leveraged very well. But we're 50 today. And so you know when to do that, and it's a collective effort of everybody saying, we literally have a vote on our budget at my team level every year to say, I'm signing up because every one of us, any one of us falls down, it can't happen at that kind of growth, right? We've got 4 years of 50+% growth in a row going.
Any other last last questions? No? Well, thank you again for investing your time.
Thank you.
And your stories were awesome. And yes, you are an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you.
Feel free to have another beverage or any more pizza, and Tom will be around for a little bit more. I know that we do need to be out of here by 8:50. Right, Emily? She's somewhere here, yes. So
She already left.
Oh, she's back there. No, she's back there. So we just need to leave and be respectful. The other thing is, in the month of December, we will not have a startup grind to be respectful for activities. But we will definitely in January and February, and that will be announced. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.